Thank you for joining us for Working Through the Word, a ministry of the Richmond Church of Christ. Let's join our pulpit minister, Mike Johnson, as he brings today's lesson.
We have failed to worship. We don't have a scripture reading. Just as good, because I'm going to talk about it anyway. Matthew chapter 25. Go ahead and turn over there. Matthew chapter 25. This morning we judgment. In view of the judgment, look externally. Tonight, in view of the judgment, look internally. The haves and the have-nots. Now, you know what we mean in a general way by the haves and the have-nots. I just wanted to see what people said about it, and the first, references I found on the internet were to some television show called The Haves and the Have-Nots. I never heard of it, but apparently it's exactly what we think of. We think of people that have a lot of money and a lot of stuff, and people who don't have money and don't have stuff. They are the have and the have-nots. Well, that's not how God describes it. Now, it's right. What I just said is right. That's how we use it in our language, and that's okay. But I want you to notice who the haves and the have-nots are. In our scripture reading, Matthew 25, verse 29. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. The haves and the have-nots. Now, in preparing this lesson, this is what the context of this text said to me. And I'm going to give you what I understand this text to say about God's definition of the haves and the have-nots. Now, the context for this verse goes back at least to chapter 24 and verse 45 and continues through the entire chapter of chapter 25. Now, if we think of this text to be referring to, and I'm even going to say, think about it this way for a minute, still working on this part of it. But if we think of this text like we did this morning with the sheep and the goats, as referencing the who have a relationship with God and goats have a relationship with God, I'm not sure that's the real context. So, let's see if we can figure out this idea. Who are the haves and the have-nots? Well, number one, this is not about people. I think our context is describing not a comparison between people in a relationship with God compared to those who have no relationship with God. I don't think that's the context. And I think that understanding that context becomes very important for getting to what seems to me to be the main emphasis of this whole section. Because it seems to me that from chapter 25, verse 24, verse 45, through 25:46, he is speaking to people who are in a relationship with him. Some properly, some improperly. So for instance, who are the haves? When if they're both in a relationship with Jesus. In other words, here's what I'm going to propose to you. This whole text is about faithful Christians, if you will, and unfaithful Christians. Not about saved and unsaved because they've never been saved. So hold on to that. So who are the haves? Haves are the people who appreciate what they have. If you think about it, we're going to see it here in just a minute, in the three sections leading to the text from this morning. They appreciate what they have. Number two, they time compare what they have with what others have. So these faithful people are not, well, what I have, the Lord, is what you have. I'm in a better relationship. They just don't spend time comparing. It's not their desire to do that. And number three, the haves possess it so well that they want more. They have it, but in mind, they don't have enough. I want more. We're going to see that, my proposition. So then, who are the have-nots? The have-nots are people who have. Every one of these we have in chapter 24, the servants. That's a relationship. We have the foolish virgins at the wedding feast. They have a relationship, which is why they're there. The servants to whom the master gave talents to do something with, they're all servants. So they all have. But the have-nots, look at what they have as a burden. It's a weight. It's just what I have to do. Now, for our purposes, the way we use the word especially, and I've never done a deep dive into it, but I will. The difference between what we understand as slavery and what these texts are saying about servants are different concepts. These servants agreed to do it. The overwhelming emphasis to me, or likelihood to me, is these servants are people who were indentured servants. They needed help, and they said, I will work for you if you will pay off my debts. And once my debts are paid, then I don't have to work for you anymore. They made a choice. When we think of slavery, we think of people who didn't have a choice. They were grabbed from their homes and sold. That's not what these are. So I think these are people, though they made a choice, they're servants, it's a burden. They don't like it. I just have to do it. Therefore, these are people who they're only concerned about what do I have to do right now. Now, it's the haves and the have-nots, both of whom are in a relationship with the Lord. Now, you mull that over and tell me what you think about that. Having said that, let's now notice the three contexts where Jesus talks about the haves and the have-nots. And notice three very distinctive sets that make the difference between the haves and the have-nots. 24, 46, or 45 beginning. Okay. Notice number one, who then is a faithful and wise servant was haves. He was a servant. And he was faithful and wise. And so what happened? The ruler gave him extra responsibility. The ruler said, I'm going to put you over my household. Now I want you to notice the play here. He said, I'm putting you over my household, and you're going to feed them in due season. Now, the household back then included everybody, the blood relations. So the household was the master, blood family, all of the servants. So it appears to me that he put this one guy in charge of everybody. So it's his job to make everybody have opportunity to eat. Now, of course, there was an order. The family ate first, and when it was all done, the servants were. But these are servants all. He was one time called wise and faithful. He had a job. He had responsibility. He knew that this is what to do. And apparently, he had been willing to do so. He said he was wise and faithful. What's that? But all of a sudden, something changed. Now, we're going to notice three words. Here's the first word that comes in this context, hypocrite. It's used in verse 51. Because what happens is, this servant decides, okay, the master is gone. Just doing his job, he began to beat his servants. He began to beat people in his own household. Probably not the blood relatives, but other servants. And he's hanging out with drunkards. Probably hanging out with people not in the household. That's probably what's going on. And because of this position that he has acquired, he now has this standard has changed about himself. When he was a wise and faithful servant, did he hang out with the drunkards? Nope. Did he treat his fellow right? Nope. Apparently. Because now he's not. And now he has decided that because of his standing, the standards don't apply to him anymore. And he begins to treat his fellow servants the haves become have-nots when we act hypocritically. We have a relationship with Jesus. We're called wise people, but when we then turn and act in hypocritical fashion, boy, Jesus did not like hypocrites, did he? Some of the toughest language in Scripture was Matthew 23. I wonder if Jesus preached on a Sunday morning, walked in Matthew 23, people would be upset with him. Oh, you were mean. You were not nice. You were not loving. This have became a have not because all he decided the standard now is different for me. I know the temptation of Christian people to hang out more with people who are not in the relationship with Jesus than they do to hang out with the brethren. But I also know that sometimes brethren treat each other worse than they treat brethren. I know it to be true. We're nicer to people in the world than we are to people with whom we worship on a continuous basis and who are washed of Jesus just like we are. And we halves in that way become halves. Number 2. 25, starting in verse 1. Once again, we have haves and have-nots. Now, the way these wedding parties, wedding feasts worked, it was a long ordeal, a week. There would be a certain day, not time, but a certain day when everybody has been partying and we're ready now for a wedding to an event, and the groom is going to be coming, and he's going to take the part of this group, this wedding feast party, and we're going to all go in together. They know what day, and go there ready. They all have responsibilities. There's 10 of them here that are ready. So they know. But here's the haves. They are ready for what they know and know. Well, they don't know what time of day it's going to be. They may have even been waiting in the daylight hours prior to having to use their oil light. And so they're waiting, and now it becomes dark. Oh, they got to get their oil going. And the longer they wait, the oil is going out, and 5 of them go, oh, he may be too long. You got to help us. Give us some oil. No. Because our second word is procrastinators. You knew the 5 foolish. Did they want the bridegroom to come and take them with him? Absolutely. Did they intend not to have enough? No. In fact, it may be that during the day they could have been sitting around thinking, you know, look over there. Those 5 have extra supply of oil. We didn't do that. You know, we probably ought to go do that. Okay, we will. We will. Maybe he's going to come during the daytime and we'll be okay, so we'll just wait. And we'll get it, but it's coming somewhere. And now, too late. These are both haves. They're part of the invited wedding feast. But the have-nots are the haves who were only thinking about and prepared for what they knew. They weren't prepared for what they can't know. Do you sometimes find yourself thinking about yourself? I need to fix this. I need to work on this. I need to change this. And I'm going to. Have you had the same prayer about yourself for days, months? How about years? It's not your intention. It's not a decision that says, no, I'm not going to do it now. You want to change, and I'm going to. My intention is. I told you my story of my friend. You probably have one too. Somebody whose intention was good, but they passed before they could fulfill their intention. The have-nots are haves who just wait too long. We're about to go into a new year. And by the end of January, we're all going to be just as tired of hearing about New Year's resolutions as I am tired of hearing about Christmas right now. Because that's every year how it happens, isn't it? And every year, I will, and in some form, you probably will too, make a resolution. Because every one of us wants to be better. Every one of us desires, but the have-nots never get around to it. Number three. Number three is, I said 3 words. Number 3 is 2 words, but they're so closely together that if you've seen the television commercial, I'm going to bundle them. So the 2 words is just 1 word. The fearful lazy. The master again of these servants. I am led to believe that these are servants like the ones in chapter 24, wise and faithful. If not, why then did he call them out and say, here's some stuff for you to take care of. Here are talents to take care of. He trusted them, did he not? I think so. So they had responsibility. They had a relationship. They knew what they needed to do. They agreed to do it. Oh, and guess what? Who are the haves? The haves protect what is not theirs. And that's good. This whole uproar that's become political, dealing with global warming and O2 gas or CO2 gas and all that stuff. You know what? It all boils down to this. God put us in charge of this planet to take care of it. That's fact. Now, I don't know what the other facts are, but I know the fact that it's our job to manage it. I know that. Mismanagement of what God owns is not right. So, however that's defined on this political shelf or that one, I don't know. But I do agree with the principle. We're supposed to manage it. And so here we are, servants who are making somebody else's stuff, and they are protected. Good for them. And we should protect. But here's the problem. The have became have-nots. Check this out. By being so protective of it that they squelched the potential of it. Two of them. Yeah, it's good stuff. Just because they went out and earned more, doubled what they had, were they not protective of it? Of course they were. Do you think they went out just willy-nilly throwing it around, seeing what? They were protecting it to gain more. What about the one that he did? Right? He protected it. But what did he not do? So who are the have-nots? The have-nots are the haves. It's so focused on protecting that they never use the potential. Now I'm going to stand as you should. As Paul, chapter 2 and 15, we need to stand on sound doctrine. And I'm not changing my stance on that. There is that which is right and there is that which is wrong. And God has shown us truth. Never alter it, never overlook it, never abuse it. I stand doctrine. But I don't want to be so protective that I don't allow it to have its free course, allowing it to reach its full potential. I mean, there are all things that, and I'm talking about the religious world at large. I'm talking about our brethren. There are all kinds of things we argue over and have for years. And I don't think any one of them would be predictive of sound doctrine, because I think they all were. But sometimes, in being protective of sound doctrine, we just hide behind a wall and the potential of the doctrine it without recognizing its power. There are things that are perfectly allowed and perfectly reasonable to doctrine to flow. Maybe we get too bent out as protectors and not as people managing the potential. What I want you to do is just think about it, and think about specific ways you might be guilty of that kind of thing, and I'll not give you any. And we can talk. So here is the point of the lesson. He is talking to us who have a relationship with Jesus, having submitted to him and agreed to follow. We're the sheep. So who are the goats? Admittedly, they're going to be people who rejected Jesus all along, and they're going to be his wrath too. I get that, but I'm sure that's what that text is just talking about. I wonder if the goats are the sheep who have just not who they ought to be. It probably does include everybody else, but There sheep are sheep, that is, those in relationship with Jesus, who, because of hypocrisy or procrastination or fearful laziness, are going to find you. Point I forgot to make. Did you notice in the reaction to the man with the one talent? He said to his master, I was afraid. Isn't that right? What did the master say to him? You were lazy. You know what fear is? Fear leads to laziness. It does. Fear can lead to laziness. So if I live my life in fear, it will handicap me. It will put me in a chair and I'll not move, because at least sitting in the chair, I'm protected. But if I get up and start walking, I could fall. Oh, I don't want to fall. I'm going to sit in the chair. Fear, spiritual fear, leads to laziness. If I am so afraid of being wrong, then I will be lazy and I will not move forward. While holding on to sound doctrine, let us not squelch the power of that same doctrine. In view of the judgment, let's look internally. Look internally. I don't want to be hypocritical. I don't want to procrastinate, and I don't want to be a fearful, lazy person. If we need to help you in some way, we always sing, encouraging you to let us help you if you need. While our shepherds are here, we stand and sing.
We hope that you enjoyed today's broadcast, brought to you by the Richmond Church of Christ. We are located at 1500 Lancaster Road in Richmond, Kentucky. We meet at 9 a.m. each Sunday morning for Bible class, followed by our morning worship service held at 10 a.m. Our Sunday evening service is held at 6 p.m. Our midweek Bible study is held on Wednesday at 7 p.m. If you are in the area, we would love to have you as our honored guest. Thanks for listening.